Hello everyone, welcome to another day where I avoid the elephant in the room of the geopolitical goings-on in the Ukraine with Russia. However, those stories appear to be now page 2 stories because page 1 stories have all been about the Tories recently. And one story that was about in the news for quite a few weeks before the big incident in Ukraine was something known in the UK as Partygate. And we appear to be coming to the end of that story with this. Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak fined for breaking lockdown laws. PM and Chancellor have received fixed penalty fines for attending an illegal gathering. So for those of you not from the UK, this was a massive story that I really didn't care about, because basically everyone broke lockdown rules. But, as will be a common theme in this video, the Tories seem to make or enforce some rules, but not enforce it upon themselves. Hence the multiple parties held at Downing Street and for other parliamentary groups, where people gathered in large groups in indoor facilities with absolutely no masks and absolutely not a care in the world for COVID. For some reason, I don't know whether they thought they could get away with it or they just did not care for the rules that they have enforced themselves. I don't know. But as I say, pretty much everyone I know broke the rules. There's very few people I know that didn't break the rules at all. Though I do know a few people who were so scared they stuck by the rules pretty perfectly, I'll be honest. But here are the people debating what rules we should have for lockdown while in Parliament, and now they just decided, oh, we'll have some parties because we don't care. So I can understand why it's annoying to some people, but luckily it appears that the law has really come down upon them. So Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak are to receive fixed penalty notices for breaking COVID laws after a police investigation into Downing Street parties during lockdown, leading to calls for them both to resign. Well, that's just ridiculous. In an unprecedented development, the Prime Minister and his Chancellor were both set to be fined for breaking their own emergency laws brought in to protect the country during the pandemic. They are believed to be the first Prime Minister and Chancellor to have broken the law while in office. Alright, they are definitely the first two who have broken the law and been prosecuted for it. I would be amazed if every Chancellor and every PM before this had never broken a law. Carrie Johnson, the Prime Minister's wife, is also set to receive a fixed penalty notice, her spokesperson has confirmed. So I can appreciate that the courts are actually applying this law fairly. It doesn't matter if you're in power, you broke the law, you deserve to receive this fixed penalty notice. Whether it will make a dent at all in their bank accounts is another question, but I can't imagine it will, but whatever. I just don't care that much about this issue. Some MPs had parties. Yeah, everyone did. The Labour leader, Keir Starmer, called on Johnson and Sunak to resign. Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak have broken the law and repeatedly lied to the British public, he said. There are also questions over whether Johnson misled Parliament, as he told MPs in the Commons that all COVID rules were followed. They're not going to resign, Keir. No, I mean, it's weird. Labour are doing better in the polls now, and that is despite Keir Starmer, I'm not going to lie. But no one really listens to Keir Starmer. Most people don't even know who Keir Starmer is. He's the most pathetic leader of the opposition I think I've seen in my life. Nicola Sturgeon, the Scottish First Minister and SNP leader, also called for the Prime Minister to quit. Boris Johnson must resign, she said. He broke the law and repeatedly lied to Parliament about it. Basic values of integrity and decency, essential to the proper working of any parliamentary democracy, demand that he go, and he should take his out-of-touch Chancellor with him. And I mean, these are just your standard reaction for politics. Oh, they did something wrong? Resign. Which I could see the reasoning behind the resignation calls, but it's not going to happen. And honestly, I think from everyone's perspective, people who are going to replace the Chancellor and Prime Minister are only going to be worse. I mean, I couldn't name you a single MP who would be willing to be the Prime Minister and Chancellor and actually be good at it. I mean, this is how much of a non-story this is. So the fines related to parties held in Downing Street during lockdown and are likely to include a gathering in the Cabinet Room for Johnson's birthday in June 2020, which was also attended by Sunak. However, Number 10 gave no details on how many events the Prime Minister will be fined for attending and would not say whether he would contest the fine, likely to be £20 or £50, or pay them straight away. Number 10 spokesperson said the Prime Minister and Chancellor of the Exchequer today have received notification that the Metropolitan Police intend to issue them with fixed penalty notices. We have no further details, but we will update you again when we do. It comes after the Met said it had issued more than 50 fines, with Starmer saying the widespread criminality called into question Boris Johnson's honesty and integrity. Well, he's a politician, so he has neither. But honestly, this will likely be a non-story in 2 weeks. These MPs will pay their 50 quid, all 52 of them. People will probably completely forget about Partygate in a couple of weeks because it is basically a non-issue. Some politicians broke laws that they introduced. They are now receiving the punishment for it. That's it. Story over. Great. Let's move on. The next story is also about Rishi Sunak, or more specifically, his wife. Akshata Murthy, inquiry into leak of Rishi Sunak's wife's taxes begins. Also, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, who has generally raised, the UK's taxes in the past budget, turns out his wife's trying to dodge some. A Whitehall inquiry is underway into how the tax affairs of Chancellor Rishi Sunak's wife were leaked to the media, the BBC has been told. Akshata Murthy has said she will pay UK taxes on her overseas income following a row over her non-domicile status. She owns £700 million in shares of the Indian IT giant Infosys, founded by her father, from which she received £11.6 million in dividend income last year. So for those that don't know, a non-domicile UK resident is a UK resident who declares their permanent home to be outside of the United Kingdom. And since their permanent residence is outside the United Kingdom, it means that they basically have to pay less tax, as the BBC article goes into. As a non-domiciled, non-dom UK resident, Ms Murthy is not required by law to pay UK taxes on her overseas income. The BBC estimates this would have saved her £2.1 million a year in UK tax. After details of her non-dom status appeared in the press on Wednesday evening, Mr Sunak said his wife has not done anything wrong, and it was unfair to attack her as a private citizen. I mean, to be fair, if she has been tax dodging, the media's obviously going to go over that. How exactly they got details that she's been tax dodging, I don't know. And honestly, if she's been breaking the law, yes, you're obviously going to have an investigation go underway. But on Friday, Ms Murthy announced she would change her tax arrangements, telling the BBC she did not want to be a distraction for her husband. Asked about the U-turn on the BBC Sunday morning programme, Policing Minister Kit Malthouse said that the couple had recognised the situation offended against a British sense of fair play. Yes, but I care about whether it broke any laws. Because this is another thing, people constantly go on about how the rich, they tax dodge, they buy things from offshore accounts because it means they don't get taxed as much and things like this. And it's like, look, everyone does something to try and dodge taxes, or at the very least tries to get money back from the government. That's why a lot of people in trade jobs, they tend to want to be paid by cash in hand, because it's easier to, tax dodge essentially. So it's something everyone does, but obviously when you're wife of the Chancellor of the Exchequer who's just upped taxes in the UK, of course people are going to scrutinise your taxes. But luckily for the people that actually really do care about tax dodging, she's not going to dodge tax anymore, so well done, you got what you wanted. So there you go, Rishi Sunak's having a pretty tough week. Not only is he finally being fined for having fun over lockdown, but his wife's also causing him problem to save £2.6 million a year. £2.1 million, whatever. But now we should probably get on to some more serious stories. Because it appears while the groomer meme is going around about left-wing teachers and other leftists and things like that, basically grooming kids into sexualities and to be transgender and things like this, well, it turns out that the right wing, or at least the mainstream right wing, aren't innocent of this either, as Tory MP Imran Ahmed Khan performed sex acts on sleeping aid worker, court told. And that's not even the worst part of it. A Conservative MP who is on trial for sexually assaulting a 15-year-old boy performed a sex act on a sleeping British aid worker in Pakistan, a court was told yesterday. The aid worker said he reported Imran Khan to MP for Wakefield, to the British High Commission and the Foreign Office, but that no action was taken. Khan is on trial accused of forcing a 15-year-old boy to drink gin and tonic and then groping him as he lay in bed in Staffordshire in January 2008. Yes, this is absolutely sickening, and I'm glad the man is going to court for it. But it just seems like this MP is a horrible freak. The aid worker, who was then in his early 20s and working on a project funded by the Foreign Office in Pakistan, told Southwark Crown Courts that he was assaulted in November 2010. He said that he regularly saw Khan get drunk after a few gin and tonics, even though Muslims are forbidden from drinking in Pakistan, and Khan is a Muslim, believe it or not. I also don't know what the Pakistani law on gay sex is exactly, but I can't imagine that you'd be too far away from a rooftop if you were caught doing something homosexual. When he got drunk, he would act quite flirtatiously and lean over and tickle me, and I would tell him to stop, he told the court. The aid worker said that Khan booked one room for them both at a Pakistan government guest house during the visit to Peshawar. He said Khan had been drinking during that evening and offered him a sleeping pill when they returned to the guest house. Oh my god. He told the court the next thing he remembered was Khan performing a sex act on him after removing his underwear. I pushed him off me and told him to stop and said, "What the F are you doing?" he told the court. I mean, obviously what this guy went through was horrible and awful. And I mean, seriously, if a man's trying to get you drunk, offers you a sleeping pill, and has booked a single room for two people, expect the sleep to be anything but innocent, clearly. The aid worker denied disinhibition from alcohol or drugs, which meant he went along with something he regretted the following day. I was not consenting, he said. I was not gay, and I have never experimented with being gay. He said that he immediately resigned from the project and reported the incident to the High Commission in Islamabad and to the Foreign Office in London. Probably for the best he didn't report the incident to any sort of Pakistani policeman. Things would be way worse for Khan here if he did, I imagine. I wanted it to be on record that the incident happened, he said. At that stage, it was not taken any further by the Foreign Office. Which is pretty horrendous. I mean, this guy's waited 12 years for any sort of justice. There was an attempted rape on him, and it's taken 12 years to get anywhere. And it just gets worse. A colleague in London also informed the Foreign Office and later sent the alleged victim an email reading good outcome on the financial stuff, not so good on the sexual assault thing. Yeah, you got that right. He said that Khan's homosexuality was an open secret in Pakistan. He also said that he has seen Khan smoke marijuana, although the MP said that he particularly dislikes the smell of the drug. Yeah, well, he's not going to say, yes, I love the ganja, is he? The aid worker said Khan had connections with the generals in the military who control Pakistan and with politicians. He was well placed and quite influential. He said he had not contacted the police in Pakistan because he was concerned about the influence Khan could have on the court process, which is understandable. And this is the thing, leftists aren't completely wrong when they bring up power dynamics and things like that. Because it is true you're put in very difficult positions and people in power will do awful things to those under them that they think they can get away with. Hence we have these checks and balances. Where they go wrong is when they say, oh, it's patriarchy, or oh, it's all men versus women, it's all cis heteronormative society that's got power everywhere versus the gay trans people, and you seem to care what bathroom they go in, when it's actually a bit more complicated than that. And this is a direct example of someone using their power to take advantage of someone much younger than they are and much more their junior. And I mean, thank God, even if it is 10 to 15 years later, thank God there's some justice finally being served on it, because this will hopefully deter other MPs from trying to, well, rape their workers. But man, this isn't even the worst bit. He said that he contacted police in the UK after reading a report about Khan being charged with sexually assaulting a teenage boy. Police were called to the teenage boy's family the day after the alleged incident in January 2008. The boy contacted police again after Khan's election in 2019. 11 years. That's how bad that incident was. 11 years later, he's like, hey, you know how I said that he sexually assaulted me? Why is he still free? The boy travelled twice from London to Staffordshire to be interviewed, while Khan was asked to fill in a questionnaire because of COVID protocols. Great. Khan told the police that he had been drinking at the boy's family home and at a party at a restaurant, but not at any stage of the evening did I become drunk or lose control of my actions. Don't believe you, but that's for the court to decide. Because, I mean, just listen to the rest of this story. Does this sound like nothing happened? So, bear in mind he'd been drinking throughout the evening. But he said he had a philosophical conversation with the Catholic schoolboy about religion, culture and sexuality, with no sexual undertones. He'd been having a conversation after drinking, quite a few gin and tonics, I imagine. And he started talking with this Catholic schoolboy, and one of the topics was sexuality. But there were no sexual undertones. There are sexual undertones in every chat about sexuality. And the conversation continued that night when he was offered a spare bed in the teenager's bedroom. I really hope that's not true. Why would you offer a 30 to 40-year-old man a spare bed in a boy's bedroom after he's been drinking. That's really weird. That would obviously be even worse if it was a girl's bedroom. Either way, what the hell is going on? Khan said the only physical contact was a reassuring touch of the elbow as the boy left his bed. Why were you near his bed? Apparently upset after he suggested the type of pornography he watched was an indication of his sexuality. Why were you talking about pornography? This is such a weird situation. I'd be surprised if he's found innocent, I'll say that. Khan denies sexual assault. The trial continues. So quickly before we move on, spoiler alert, Imran Ahmed Khan, MP, guilty of sex assault on 15-year-old boy. So the jury unanimously decided that the man was a nonce. Though before we go into detail about that, there's a bit of a side story we need to go into, because, as I say, the Tories just can't catch a break at all this week. Because Tory MP and former Justice Minister Crispin Blunt decided it was a really good idea to put out this statement that is now deleted for obvious reasons about Imran Ahmed Khan's verdict. Statement on the conviction of Imran Ahmed Khan, MP. I am utterly appalled and distraught at the dreadful miscarriage of justice that has befallen my friend and colleague Imran Ahmed Khan, MP for Wakefield since December 2019. His conviction today is nothing short of an international scandal, with dreadful wider implications for millions of LGBT plus Muslims around the world. He sexually assaulted 2 people, one of whom was underage, by the way. Apparently you've got to let nonces go, otherwise gay Muslims specifically, around the world are going to suffer. That's a really, really weird take. I sat through some of the trial. The conduct of this case relied on lazy tropes about LGBT plus people that we might have thought we had put behind us decades ago. I don't know the details of the case, but it sounds a lot more like no. He got quite drunk and tried to grope a couple of people, and sexually assault them, of course, as well. As a former Justice Minister, I was prepared to testify about the truly extraordinary sequence of events that has resulted in Imran being put through this nightmare start to his parliamentary career. I hope for the return of Imran Ahmed Khan to the public service that he has exemplified his life to date. Any other outcome will be a stain on our reputation for justice, an appalling own goal by Britain as we try and take the lead in reversing the Victorian-era prejudice that still disfigures too much of the global statute book. I am in shock that would be your reaction to this. That does just scream, let the nonces go, otherwise more gay people are going to be stoned. I mean, you can probably see why it's been deleted since. As is detailed in this Times report, Crispin Blunt apologises for criticism of Imran Khan's sexual assault conviction. Crispin Blunt retracts statement that verdict was dreadful miscarriage of justice, and thank God he did. So, amid calls for Blunt to be thrown out of the party this morning, he retracted his comments and said that he was sorry for his defence of Khan had been a cause of significant upset and concern, not least to victims of sexual offences. So he's not sorry that he said it, he's sorry that, it's like, oh, sorry you feel that way. It's more of that type of apology more than a sorry that I'm trying to defend a paedophile. Blunt said, to be clear, I do not condone any form of abuse, and I strongly believe in the independence and integrity of the justice system. His retraction came after government ministers distanced themselves from Blunt and made clear that they believed he should retract them. And let's bear in mind as well that Khan has also been kicked out of the party for obvious reasons. And the rest of this article details different people calling Blunt a complete moron in very polite terms, and also details stuff we've gone through before with Khan's conviction and trial. And no doubt this won't be the end of the Tories' blunders this week. I mean, you can't get much worse than having a convicted nonce in your party that has to be kicked out, and then another MP deciding that it's a good idea to defend him. But the Tories best hope that this is the last of their scandals for at least a few months, as there are some elections coming up for councils and local elections in Wales and things like this. Having nonces in your party does not reflect well when it comes to the polling booth. But anyway, that's all I had for you today. So, as usual, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.